Hey guys, this is Nick with the Forever Change podcast. I want to thank you so much for listening to this podcast and let you know one of the ways that you can get involved with what we're doing here behind the scenes at Forever Changed, and that's to let you know about our Patreon. And what we're doing with our Patreon is giving you full access behind the scenes to everything we're doing, from early content all the way to our Zoom Bible studies with our community based all around the world, from Europe to here in the States to even Australia as well. And so one way that you can do that is go over to patreon.com/Nick and Chelsea, sign up for one of our packages and tiers there and get plugged in with our community. I hope that you do it, and I cannot wait to see you there. But from here on out, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Forever Changed. This is a really exciting episode for both of us because we are going to talk about a lot of the things that we've been learning lately through this whole journey of being young, but also having to work around finances and like how to best balance that as a young person. So today we just want to talk about some things and some shifts that we've had maybe in our way of thinking and how we've been going about actually dealing with money as young people. And so I think it's going to be a really interesting episode. I don't think that we've done an episode like this for probably 40 or 50 podcast episodes. It's been a long time since we talked about money or talked about decision making or anything like that. And I'm sure if we went back and listened to that episode, we would probably laugh and disagree with much of what was said there. I would think. I can't say that for sure because I'm not exactly certain as to what was said in that episode.
Right. But the great thing about like finances in certain areas of life where you're constantly growing and learning new information is that's okay. Like you can laugh at a period of time where you believed a certain way and say, hey, that worked for that time. But now that we're older and we have a family and we're trying to create kind of a legacy with the decisions that we make and the things that we do, finances play a part in that. And even in scripture, money is talked about so many times and it's taken seriously. So we want to take it seriously too, you know?
Right.
But we also don't want to stress ourselves out to the max because I know that a lot of people, you may even have these feelings too towards finances of just whenever you hear the word money or debt or any of the like.
Or Dave Ramsey.
Yeah. It gives a little bit of stress underneath your skin. And we want to alleviate stress, not make you feel like you don't have a say-so in your finances because you definitely do. You have more control than you think you do. And we just want to kind of share the journey we've been on and then also maybe how we should kind of look at finances in our 20s because most of us here are in our 20s and we think it's important. So.
Yeah, that is true. We definitely do think that it is important. But I have ran into people in many different, phases of life, being young. Some are working, some are in their undergrad, some are in their community college years, some are in their postgraduate doctoral work at like 26 or 27. So there's like a lot of different situations that people have and that they are in. But one thing I've noticed is that some people really care about it and some people don't really care about it, but there's hardly ever that middle ground or that in-between place. Why should people care about finances, like in your opinion? I mean, for obvious reasons, like yes, money is one of those things that we have to steward and tend to in life, but why should people care about the decisions that they're making with money? Assuming that they might have the standard lackadaisical, not really caring, not really knowing where their money's going or anything like that, or how much is coming in versus what's going out, or what would you say to the person who is just finding themselves like, I don't not care, but I don't care a lot. I'm just kind of in the middle.
Yeah. I would say it's easy to get to a place if you have a mindset like that where your money has a hold on you rather than the other way around, like rather than you telling where it goes. Why? Because our system in America and in other countries are very much set up to where the everyday consumer, everyday person is set to have a certain amount of debt, and it's normal. But usually it just keeps you in bondage in a lot of ways. Like if you weren't to focus on crunching down your debt and just like living out of what you can, living by your means, like then you're gonna feel very anxious, stressed, like, or you could believe that borrowed money is your money and eventually it'll catch up to you. So I think it's healthy to have these conversations, but I also I think there's a way to still have fun, even with like the money that you're given. And I am a believer in budgeting. We can get into that like later. But
I think it'd be fun to talk about some of the dumb decisions
oh yeah,
we made.
And I wanted us to kind of start off this episode that way because I know that you and I made some decisions like very early on in our marriage and even before we met each other that we look back and we're like, how did we get through that and why did we do that? But I'm sure all of you can probably relate to some sort of decision that you've made in your past, or maybe you could potentially make in the future, and hopefully this episode will save you.
And also, I do want to free up some people because I think that the assumption when you begin listening to an episode like this is like, oh, they're going to tell me to like never spend a dime and like,
No.
everything needs to be the cheapest of cheap. And I have learned, and we'll share a story in a moment, but I've learned the hard way that most often you get what you pay for. But sometimes people who don't have the means to go to like the highest level still try to, and they try to make up the difference using borrowed money. But that doesn't mean that, if you have a middle of the road means that you need to be searching for like the cheapest of the cheap. There are certain things that I think that you can cut costs on, but there's some things that are worth paying for.
Yeah.
For example, those two words usually mean a transition to a story, which is exactly what I'm about to do. So Chelsea and I had just gotten married, literally just gotten married. I mean, we're like fresh, days fresh. And we go on apartments.com or whatever the apartment finder website of choice is. I think that's what it is. I think it's apartments.com. And so we go on there and we are looking at our local area. We were still living in Metro Atlanta at the time. Mm-hmm. And so we go on and we're looking for different options as to where we can live in these first 2-3 years of our marriage. And so, we're searching, we're looking, we find a few options, we narrow the options down, and we make the dumb decision that based on the cost of 2 of the 3 options to not go and tour those facilities. We were just like, you know what, they're just $100, $200 more per month. Let's just nix those and let's just go for this one. And so we go and we tour this one and we're like, wow, yeah, wow, this is not great, but it'll work for the first few years. So we go in to the lease office, we sign a contract on this 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. Yeah. So sign the contract for $966 big ones a month. I still remember the number. It's like burned in my head.
For some people, that's really expensive. And for others, that's very cheap. Like, it depends on where you live.
Yeah. It is all market driven. And so we go and we sign the contract on that and we move in, and it is just an absolute disaster. Why don't you share?
But we didn't know it was a disaster.
No, we didn't.
At first.
No.
I think
it was actually fine for a few months.
I wouldn't say a few months, maybe a few weeks at the most. But one of the things that I think is really easy when you're touring apartments is to get wrapped up in the amenities and all the things they promise you whenever they're giving you the tour, and the culture of the area. Like, people hang out, there's this pool, there's people there all the time. And I'm like, the way that they phrase how things are, like the apartment life, it sounds great at the time. And then whenever you live, like, one of the statements that they have said, like, there's people at the pool all the time, and then your apartment is right next to the pool, you don't really like that there's people at the pool all the time.
And at that apartment, there were hardly ever people at the pool.
Right. But in our case, there was this soccer unit, or this soccer
It was like
field.
this enclosed, fenced turf soccer field. So there's like a building here. If you're watching on camera, there's a building here. There's here, and this is our building. Then there's one here, and then right over here is the street. So it's
And
like a
ours
big
was
U.
right there.
There's like this big U thing, a road, and then right in this middle courtyard, there is a turf soccer field that's all fenced in with like 20-foot fences going up.
So you would think that's great that we live next to a soccer field and we could go out there anytime and just have a blast. And we did. We had a puppy at the time. We had a blast with him. He loved, like, bouncing off balls on his nose. Like, he just had a great time. But we realized as days went by that people love to go out there at night, and they do not respect the hours in which you're supposed to be on the field.
Which was no later than 10 p.m. Got to be out.
I think it was 9. But anyway, they were out there until at least 1 in the morning most nights, and it's loud. Like, they're kicking those balls hard.
And this also isn't like 3 or 4 people. No joke, this is a group, I remember counting one night. This is a group of like 21 teenagers. And none of them live there.
No. They had just heard that there's a soccer field, and there's minimal soccer fields in Georgia because this is where we were living at the time. And they're wanting to practice. I get it. But there are other times of the day to practice other than disturbing the neighbors that live right there. So that was one of the things. We also didn't know this until a few weeks in, after watching patterns of activity that had happened. We're going to get on with the story, but this is just, we laugh at this. We were becoming friends with our neighbors and, just trying to make, acquaintances turn into friends. And we didn't realize that our upstairs neighbor gave us a fake name and that he had deals happen every Friday night for drugs. And I felt bad for his kids because he always sent them out of the house, and I would try to play with them and stuff. But, golly, like, he eventually, got caught, and the whole complex.
Well, no, he didn't get caught. He moved out. Well,
he got caught as he was moving out because of the condition of his apartment.
Well, he didn't go to jail.
Well, we don't know.
Yeah, he just packed his van and left.
But anyway, we didn't want to be those neighbors that were, like, just telling on everybody all the time. But there was one night where we got frustrated with the soccer people, and we're just like, golly, you guys don't even live here. It's clear. And we just need to get, like, a friendly officer to come by and say, guys, like, you can't do this anymore. So they did, and then they ended up coming back and still staying until 1. But, we just, like, look back at that time and we're like, okay, so financially it did look better to stay at this place, but we didn't know that we would be sacrificing all of these, like,
sleep, sanity. Yeah, a lot. So in hindsight, it would have been better to actually spend more money in that kind of a situation and just be out $150 extra a month and be at peace with where you're living. That would have been the better option.
And I don't know if anybody else here has ever had a neighbor that's been wild, but not only an upstairs neighbor, our neighbor that was right on our wall to where when we were sleeping at night, we would get woken up at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning. At that point, been sleeping for 2 hours because of the soccer people. And the couple that lived in the same apartment were always arguing. Like, I'm telling you, arguing at each other, and we could not sleep.
Chris and Sarah. I'll never forget.
Holly.
Chris and Sarah. Chris and Sarah, if you're listening, I hope you're doing well these days.
I hope you are not together anymore.
I doubt that you're together anymore. But
you definitely weren't married. This podcast is in partnership with BetterHelp. Is there something preventing you from achieving your goals or seeing life the way you'd like to? Nick and I have used BetterHelp counseling in our marriage and individually over the years, and we've seen such a tremendous difference in the way we communicate, how we view parenting, and even individually feeling healthier in every area of our life. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You'll be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours, and you can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches so they can make it easy and free to change therapists if needed. We've actually done this before, and it was so easy to do, and it's more affordable than traditional offline therapy, and financial aid is available. So if you guys want to get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp, you can go to betterhelp.com/Hurst. Again, that's betterhelp.com/HURST. Yeah, we are very balanced when it comes to finances and decisions, because we understand the luxury sometimes of just being able to pay a little bit more for something to just keep your sanity and to be able to sleep.
And that's worth it. That's worth the money in that case. Now, if you don't have the means to do that, then, do what you can and be grateful for that and seek out the best opportunity in that particular situation that you can. Hey, maybe don't do what I did. And if, the 966 apartment looks great for you, then maybe be like, I love the apartment, but maybe let's not get one by the soccer field. Because I bet you if we had just switched units, I bet it would have been fine.
Yeah, it would have been a lot better.
But
anyway,
with water leaking from the ceiling,
oh gosh, we could have just gone on
soccer
and on.
fields,
but
and
we'll
then
wrap
upstairs drug dealer neighbor.
We'll wrap it up on that story.
That's just one story of many that we could share. That's one of the dumb decisions. We had just gotten out of debt, and this is another story. We had just gotten out of debt.
For probably the first time?
No, probably like the 9th time. We had just gotten out of debt, and then we went and bought a car because I was convinced that it was a good idea. And then in the peak of the used car market, go and buy a used car, a big SUV. And so I just sit down and I'm crunching the numbers, and I'm looking at the payment. I'm looking at the insurance bill. I'm looking at gas because this car only takes premium. And I'm like, man, this car just in payments costs over $1,000 a month just to have it.
Okay, and now looking at the gas prices, y'all, can you imagine having a car running on premium
only
that guzzles gas?
Yeah, literally 18 miles to the gallon.
I was like,
at most. That's
I'm
economic.
so glad that we sold that car.
Yeah.
Even though we took an L on that.
Sold that car, took a small loss on it, paid for it though, and I do not regret that at all. So I think that moving to the conversation about money, I think that one of the most valuable things, and I am still learning this as someone who went and looked at houses yesterday and got all excited about it. As someone who is still learning this, I think one of the most valuable things that we can do when it comes to money is not let our emotions override our logical thinking when it comes to how we manage money, what we're buying, what we need. Something that we have been saying around our house probably for the last week or two now is it necessary?
Yeah, and it's so annoying whenever you're the person that is trying to vouch for an idea. As far as something that actually happened this past week, Jenny's Ice Cream opened up in Greenville, and I love Jenny's Ice Cream. If you know, you know. It's great. And I was like, Nick, we gotta go for the second time. And he's like, is it necessary? And I'm like, don't tell me that. It's not, but
and guess what? We ended up going.
That question ends up working for most things. And as far as us and our budget, there is room for us to have moments where we're okay, we need to have some fun. We need to do something. So we're not super strict on each other, but we understand that there's a difference between living a life where you're saying yes to everything versus a life where you're saying yes to some things and being wise. So how do you think we should shift this? Because I know a lot of us probably just have very different upbringings with money, and we want to have a better holistic perspective and also
Yeah.
like a good plan in our 20s.
Yeah, I mean, I think before you get into strategies and investing and income versus outgo and taxes and all that stuff, I mean, you really have to have a change of heart
Yeah.
into how you view money, because if you just start putting all these tactics and things at work and in play, then I mean, yeah, it'll work for a bit, but it won't be, it won't be a long-term change in your heart and in the way that you think about money. So I think that has to be first. I mean, I love what the Bible says about everything, but especially about money, that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children. I love that the Bible says that the borrower is slave to the lender.
You love that? I don't love that, but I understand
I love the fact that God tells me how it is.
Right.
I love the fact that God would rather me be liberated financially than in bondage financially, and that He's upfront with telling us that. Amongst hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other scriptures in the Bible about money. And Micah tells us that if we are faithful with the tithe, that God will unleash. It's probably one of the only things in the scriptures that we can actually test God with. That if we will be faithful with that, then He will unleash blessing. I mean, there's so many things in the Bible that talks about money that is really just common sense. It's not like this grandeur, spiritual. It's be generous.
But a lot of people believe a scripture like that, blessing as in material things, but that's not always the case. It's usually an abundance of peace and joy and just contentment in where you're at. And then, usually when you have a right heart about material things, God knows when to increase what you can handle. And I think that there's amazing promises in scripture about money, and he also talks about investing, the story of where the talents of the different men and how they chose to
and how God entrusted someone with more talents who He knew was faithful to invest it and bring him a return, and then someone who He gave a median amount and who was faithful to invest it and brought him a return, and then the one who He gave a little, just one talent, and he went and buried it, and he brought no return. And God was, or in the parable here, the man is horrified by it. And so being faithful what God has given you and investing that for a greater cause, and being faithful to God, your money is not yours. My money is not mine. God is simply entrusting me with something for me to manage and steward on His behalf. And if I'm a good manager of God's money, God is faithful to entrust me to manage more of His own assets. And so when we're unfaithful in that, when we're just doing whatever we want, buying whatever we want, living in exuberant amounts of debt. I'm not going to pick on you for a mortgage because that's bananas right now. But racked up credit card debt, got 4 car payments, behind on 3 bills, repo trucks coming next week. When we're living that kind of a life and we're not being faithful financially to the commitments that we ourselves have made with money, I don't think that God honors that. I don't think that God looks on that.
You feel in bondage, so you're not able to fully follow in the ways that God wants you to go, and what He's entrusting you to, and the passions He's given you, and just the purposes He has for your life. Whenever you're being held back in a really big area, and there's so many stories in Scripture, but also we are first to say that this is an ongoing learning experience for us. In fact, we've stopped the idea of ever recording a podcast about finances because we've made so many mistakes. But we think that that's actually a part of many people's process and journey of learning. And we probably will make more mistakes because
certainly.
We have in other areas of our life too. But the great thing about that is being able to accept those moments as not failure, but a part of the process of getting to where you're wanting to go.
And it's just great stories to tell grandkids one day. When we're
don't do 84, what I did.
just like don't be silly. I do love one thing I heard. I don't know who said it originally. I first heard it on Dave Ramsey's podcast, which is a great listen, just for a really conservative take on money, which I think a lot of us probably should have. A lot of us should err more to the side of being conservative with money versus being very, very liberal. And that is not
in the political sense.
Yeah, not in the political sense at all. It's just a term of words there.
Conservative as in like just being kind of middle
frugal,
ground,
stringent, and then liberal, just like throwing out money, spending on everything you see. I think we'd be better off on the keeping more money in our pockets take versus just letting it all go. But I do love one thing I heard on this podcast. Money is a magnifying glass that magnifies what you already are. So if you get money and you're hateful and you're angry and you're spiteful and you're mean to people, when you get money, God help the people around you, because you're just going to be a terror to be around. But if you're graceful, if you are generous, if you are kind, if you are loving, if you are compassionate, if you are not self-seeking, but you are selfless and you care for others first, man, you are going to be awesome to hang around with money. Like, you're just going to be incredible. Like, I want to hang around that person. I want to be that person, not for the sake that God will give me more money, but just because I want to be like Jesus.
Yeah.
I just want to be that kind of person, And if money comes along with that, or if God entrusts me with more of what he has, then, that's great. I want to be generous and I want to steward that well. But I don't want to be the opposite of that, where I'm just like, in hyper, just keeping everything mode, trying to build an empire, a tower for myself. That's not fun, and that's not beneficial to the world around us.
But I think one big point that we've had to learn over this whole process is, like, if we're not content with the amount that we have and not generous with the amount that we have now, we never will be, because just an increase in your finances usually means an increase in like the desires you have for little other things that basically make you seem like you make the exact same amount of money, because your desires are like moving along the line as you increase in your finances, if that makes sense.
It goes from a Toyota Corolla to a 36-foot boat.
Or whatever, fill in the blank.
Yeah,
but
that's what it would be for me.
Okay. So
can I get a witness?
That's not me at all. But I would say the contentment side, every single voice that you hear out there, as far as like on social media or when you walk in the grocery store, everything is even set up for people like on side aisles of the grocery store to grab the BOGO items to like get more.
Maximize consumption.
Yeah. To buy more, to fill your cart.
Literally, stores hire firms and pay them hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to design their stores in such a way. When you see stores redesigning their stores, it's not just because they like you and they want to give you a fresh experience. It's because they got data and research that says if we redesign the store in this capacity, people are more apt to spend more money by the time they walk out the door. And this is the pattern. This is the heat signature of how people usually walk through stores. And so if we put items in their way at a high cost or at a high margin rate as they're moving, we're more likely as a store to increase profits.
It's twisted, but it works. I mean, just think about when you go into Target.
And they're not the devil for that. They're just trying to maximize their profits for shareholders.
I would do the same thing if I owned a store.
They're just trying to make their shareholders money.
But yeah, I just think like with the way that everything is set up for us to ultimately fall on our face and fail as far as always spending, you have to have an awareness, like a heightened awareness of your situations when you walk into a store or whenever you open up your app and you realize, okay, that person that I follow is always buying something new, and maybe she makes me feel like I have to keep up in some sort of way. Just having that awareness and protecting yourself, like giving yourself guardrails to live within, allows for you to live within your means. And what do we mean by that? Like whatever amount of money you make in a month.
And some people don't know that. Some people don't know what they make a month.
And
their paychecks just kind of come in and they're just like, that's how much I have to spend. I know I've got rent due on the 2nd and it looks good. I guess I can go do whatever.
But that is a good place to start, to say that is the amount that I make, and this is the amount that my rent costs. These are my basic expenses. There's an app called Every Dollar that has a free version where you can type in like all of the things that you have to
Don't
pay
get the free
every single
version.
month.
I'll just be straight with you. Don't get the free version. It's just bad. Dave Ramsey, call me if you don't like that I said that. It's horrible. Just pay the $12.99 a month and cut 2 cups of Starbucks and just get the $13 version. It connects to your bank. It syncs in everything. It's just
We're
so
not
much
being
better.
paid to talk about that,
No.
but it just really helps our budget because you're able to see all the transactions from your bank account and drag them into different categories that you've already placed there. And I used to hate budgeting. I'd be like, this is so strict.
And because it seems like a restriction.
But it's
It
not.
seems like this is what you can't do. Whereas when you budget in your Jenny's ice cream, it's like, no, I can do that. I've set money aside for recreation or for fun or for date night or for whatever.
It allows you to have the freedom that you talk about so often.
Yeah, and not feel guilty about it.
Exactly. But it does give you limits on that freedom so that you can save, so that you can invest, so you can pay your student loans. And it just gives you a sense of like control, because a lot of times that's what we're searching for when it comes to finances, is being able to say, I know exactly where all this money is going, and having margin for like emergencies. I don't know about you guys, but there's always something that comes up every single month in our house, and it's bound to. We have a kid, we have a dog, we live in a house, like things will come up. So just giving yourself like, save up that $1,000 to just have like some cushion. And where we got ourselves in trouble, like in previous years, is where we thought that credit cards were our cushion. And we ended up just getting back in the mindset of swiping the credit card even when it wasn't an emergency, and we had debt. We had more and more debt, like thousands more.
Yep.
So we understand our tendencies and our personality types with money, and might be beneficial for you to do some digging.
And that might not be the case for you. You might be
might
like
not.
super responsible, and that's great.
And
if
I know
you're that way,
people-
then that's
I know
awesome.
people who are so responsible with paying off their credit card every month.
Yeah.
And in a way, I'm like, I wish I could be that way.
Yeah.
But
A
that's
lot of
just
our
not me.
life is like, we wake up on a Thursday and it's like, hey, did you book that flight to wherever? It's like, no.
But
It's
that's
like,
random.
Oh,
and
just grab the Delta card. How much is it? $560. Oh, yeah, just get it. And then you look up and 3 flights later and it's like, you're just staring that bill down. It's like, man, that's terrible.
So we have recently, with like even flights, because that could easily be one where you're like, oh, that has to go on my flight credit card. You know, the one that I got with Southwest or Delta or American Airlines. But those 300 points that you're getting on that credit card versus the amount of interest that you could be paying.
It's not the points for me. It's the status.
Oh, gosh.
I just want to be Diamond Medallion. Can someone help me donate me your points and help me be Diamond Medallion?
This is where the conflict of interest happens. But
maybe that's pride. Maybe I just want to feel like I'm important because I'm getting on the airplane first.
You got jealous of me
and
for getting
everyone
platinum.
in main cabin 3 has to watch me board the airplane with my Diamond Medallion tag on my backpack
Okay,
that
but
I made
nobody's
sure
gonna
that
look at
people
you
could
like that.
see. No one really cares. No one
Exactly.
gives a crud.
But there's so many things that we could say and advice we could give, but honestly, it really comes down to your personal situation and
Everyone's
how-
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that, yes, so everyone's different, but there are things that
Basic
you can
things.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are things that you can do. There's heart tendencies that you can know. And then it's just being smart. Like, is it necessary? Do I really need that? Like, date night for us, that seems like something, you don't need that. Like, you don't need date night. Like, yeah, we do.
We need date night.
Like, that's maintenance. Like, that's upkeeping a relationship. That is spending time together. That's having meaningful conversation. And it's not that date night is necessary. It's my marriage is necessary. And pouring time and pouring effort and pouring money into that is something that is important to me.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to look 1 or 2 layers deeper because it might not seem like going to La Paria Mexican restaurant is necessary. But when it comes to like date night and the conversations we're going to have and the time we're going to spend together, and like, she's been with the kid all week and it's got throw up on her. And so like the ability to get out
Hopefully
and just
not on
like
date night.
hopefully not on date night. The ability to get out and just be like, that's necessary. That's important. And I think that, yes, like I just mentioned, you'll have to sometimes look a layer or two deeper to make sure that it's worthwhile and necessary. But when you do, you'll know when it's right and when it's not. I don't think that you have to do like an analysis or a survey to see if it's wise or not. Like, when you make a dumb purchase, you're like, man, I shouldn't have done that, or vice versa.
Right. But I think we're the examples that live a life of, if we didn't have a budget, we would be so all over the place and unstructured because we aren't paid on a consistent basis. Like, we make enough money in a year to be able to, pay all the things that we need to pay, but our lives are pretty project based versus like somebody goes into a 9 to 5, gets paid bi-weekly or monthly. And so people who live like a job where it's not as consistent, it's even more important for you to have a budget and
not be emotional.
Yeah.
Because like for us, we're being like really like forthcoming on this episode. But for us, sometimes we'll make, 5 months salary in 1 month or in the course of 3 weeks. And it can be really tempting
when you see
that in the bank account. You can get really emotional and just be like, look at all the stuff I can go do and all the things I can go buy. And again, this is right where I'm at. I am learning this like today, that you have to step back
and say, hey,
breathe,
I might not get paid for 6 months.
Don't be emotional about it. Just be very principled.
Yeah.
And don't make any fast decisions when that stuff happens. Because and maybe you're not like that. Maybe you're not project based. Maybe you just know that you're in a corporate job and at the end of the year you get a nice hefty bonus, or you might get like a bonus every 6 months or something of a few $1,000s, or some are bigger, some are smaller. But you might see that in there and you're like, man, what could I do with that? That's really tempting. But I think that for me, maybe for you too, it's just always been good for me to just step away for 48 or 72 hours and just calm down and think and get out of my emotions and get back in my head when it comes to money, and just make the right next call. And sometimes the right next call is just not making any decision, not feeling like you have to buy anything, just letting it be there and hang out and just like letting it sit for a minute and then coming back to it later and being like, okay, here's where I'm at, here's the debt I have, here's the bills I owe, and here's my next goals: investments, retirement, paying off the mortgage, whatever. And like, how am I going to use this, what I have now, still planning and being responsible to achieve these goals in order, and what is my order? And just doing that for a long time over the course of, several decades, I'm sure will land you in a really, really good place. And that doesn't matter if you come from the richest of rich or if you come from the brokest of broke. Like, you can attain some level of personal or family wealth by just being very principled, being very smart, and being very on top of it. And you don't have to devote your whole life to it either. Just build a budget, drag the transactions, know your goals, and just keep on going.
That was one thing I wanted to say, and something I think we should like turn down a little bit, turn down the aisle. I looked on this website that he had pulled up for us and investing in our 20s if we started now just with a little amount. And what's the name of that website, the calculator?
Yeah, I mean, there's
so many.
Hundreds of them out there, but the one I love, again, not endorsed, I just think their website's super clean and easy to use, but it's just Dave Ramsey's investment calculator.
Okay, so the reason I bring that up is because I was shocked whenever we put in 24 years of age and like
retirement age, the monthly where your account is now. And if you don't know anything about investments, just go on YouTube and type in like Roth IRA explanation or 401k explained. And then, there's tons of brokerages: Fidelity, Vanguard, Charles Schwab,
Anyway,
Yeah.
so just choosing right now to become somewhat passionate about educating yourself on finances, because I'm sorry that the American system or wherever you were born and raised did not teach us everything we needed to know about setting ourselves up well for like generational wealth, just to take care of our kids or just to take care of,
I'm gonna
what
do
we need to
it.
take care of.
I'm gonna
But
do it right now.
we were shocked to find that, like, if we just invested a little bit a month at our age now, choosing to do it earlier rather than later resulted in millions by retirement versus not doing anything now.
Okay, so I'm putting this in the calculator right now for the people watching the video. Okay, so I'm saying I'm 24, so that's true. I'm gonna retire at 65 standard. I have $0 in investment, none, nada. I don't even know what an investment account is. No money. I'm gonna contribute $100 a month. That's all, no more. And that means I never got a raise. That means I never got a better job. It means I never contributed more at all, which is not going to be the case for you or me, hopefully. And I'm going to really undershoot the annual return. I'm just going to say 8%, which historically index fund, which I'm not going to get into all that, does 10 to 12. I'm just going to say 8%. If you just did $100 for those years at an 8% return rate, which is heavily under average, you'd have 400 grand at retirement, which is a lot more than some people have. And then if you bump that up and say you got a much better job and you were contributing, say, 20% of your monthly budget in a married household, and you're doing 800 a month at 10%, which is on the low end of average, you'd have 5.6 million. Making 10% a year, that's $560,000.
Just by putting like a percentage of what you make as you get older, more educated, more experienced in your job.
And it takes sacrifice, and it's hard, and it's not easy to watch those transactions pull out of your bank, but it's a lot harder to be 65
And
with
have no
crippling
money.
debt, with no money, with and then someone passes away in the middle of that tragically, and it's like this whole cataclysm of events happen and house gets set. Like, you don't want that for your family, and I don't want that for mine. And so it really is the wisest choice to know enough about money to just keep yourself out of trouble, and to build at least like some sort of a nest egg. And that's different for other people than it might be for you or me. And that's okay. It's just like, how do we keep ourselves in the green and out of the red?
Right. So a lot of like things that you guys probably aren't super passionate about talking around your household, but I think it should become more of a normal conversation. If money brings up like triggering thoughts or past trauma, I think it's worth it to work through that, like with a professional, or even just like being open to just have those conversations within your marriage or family, and just choosing to not get angry or frustrated with one another, because we all come from different backgrounds with this, and we're all just trying our best. But you'd be amazed with just a little bit more like education and experience and just doing some research, basic Google research. You could learn so much more and make wiser decisions, which could ripple effect into your future, allowing for your kids to be set up well.
Yeah, and don't be ashamed of where you're at. That's another big thing I don't think enough people told us. Like, if you're in debt, like, that's okay. Let's devise a plan on how we can get out and work towards the right direction. It doesn't mean that you're like bad, or that no one likes you, or that you don't make enough money. Like, don't be ashamed of where you're at, and don't be ashamed of your income. Like, work with what you've got and build towards the future. That's the biggest thing. And your income is not always going to be the same. If you work at McDonald's, like, that's cool. You're not always going to work there. Like, you're going to move into different seasons and different times of your life. And just remember that. And remember that you're working towards a goal. You're working towards a direction. And it just takes diligence, and it takes consistency, and it takes not getting very emotional about it. It's really all just numbers, and moving those numbers and managing those numbers in the right way, in the most effective way.
Yeah. But we hope this was helpful in some sort of way. And if you've had mistakes similar to ours, we just pray that you don't continue to make those same choices.
What are some good resources that they can go and read or listen to that you know of? I've got some that I think would be really beneficial as well.
Yeah, I mean, lately, you and I have been listening and just getting advice from, like, people who kind of oppose each other's advice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not necessarily
They don't oppose
the
each other,
same.
but they have different outlooks.
Right.
For sure.
So we've always talked about Dave Ramsey quite a lot for, like, as far as debt, how to get out of debt, the basics of that.
And building wealth. He's got a great wealth building strategy.
Definitely. But we were in a long period of trying to get out of debt, but then also how to not go back into debt. That's a whole other journey, too, of just, like, flipping your mind and changing your heart. So he has really great resources. You can just, like, search his name on YouTube. He has so many YouTube videos.
Hundreds.
He has a lot of podcasts. Like, they upload daily.
Several, 3 episodes a day.
That's crazy.
And they're all free. You can get that for free.
So these are all free. And then there's some books that you've been reading too.
Yeah, Total Money Makeover by Ramsey is great. Just staying on him. They just released one called Everyday Millionaires, which is what they call people who have followed their plan and then become millionaires as a result. He goes and gives a lot of data and statistics through that book. It's phenomenal. And then there's this other book. It's probably the most known personal finance book that's really been written, at least in the last few centuries. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. That one's incredible. Richest Man in Babylon is great. And then The Millionaire Next Door. I think if you read all those, you're going to get a really comprehensive view of what it takes. And I think you'll be really shocked at how many people with average to even below average salaries have become millionaires. I think a lot of people think a millionaire is a person who makes $1 million a year. That's not what a millionaire is. A millionaire is someone with a net worth, which means assets minus liabilities. So my home is worth $500,000. It's paid for. That's a $500,000 asset I can sell and get $500,000 for.
That's not our personal home.
No. Minus my $14,000 or $15,000 in credit card debt. So I sell my house for $500. I pay off the $15,000. I've got $485,000, and that's all I've got. I have a $485,000 net worth. Assets minus liabilities. That's the net worth. And I think the two biggest categories of people who become millionaires, the first is engineers, and the second is a school teacher.
Isn't that crazy? I know a lot of people who follow us are school teachers, and a lot of my friends are school teachers. And
it's incredible. So whether you make 35 or 18 or 180, anyone can do it. It just takes diligence and having margin. But yeah, really down in the weeds. I hope this was helpful to you in some type of way.
If you want us to talk more on this or maybe expound a part of this with something different, as far as finances, we'd love to. We're trying to continue to educate ourselves. Of course, we're in our mid-20s, so still have a lot
tons
to learn. But we just wanted to meet you guys where you're at in your 20s too, and just say hey, we're in this with you. We get it. We've made a lot of mistakes, but we're learning, and we want to be ahead of other people at our age. We pray that for you too. Let's be ahead of those that.
Well, not even ahead. Let's just not be normal.
Right.
Let's just not keep contributing to the normal factor in this country of just being bogged with debt, never trying to seek a different career path or, increase your salary. Let's just get out of that whole normal is broke sort of thing. I just don't like the idea of normality.
Yeah.
So
I would say people know that about us by this point.
Hopefully.
But we appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening in. And we would love if you went ahead down into the ratings and gave us a rating. We're not going to even tell you to 5-star it. I know everybody says that, but just give us a genuine rating and share a comment of what maybe you're learning or you appreciate about this podcast. We love to read those. And yeah, we we love to hear feedback, and that's really the only way we can on podcasts. So, well, we hope you guys enjoyed our 100th episode that we did last week, and it's just amazing that we're going into, like, we've done 100 episodes. That's crazy, but we're honored to be here with you guys and to grow with you guys, and we will see you guys on our YouTube channel. If you don't know this, these episodes are available on YouTube. You can see the video version, and yeah, we'll just see you in the next episode. All right, guys. Bye.